Hello beautiful people, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. In today's video we want to take a look at another revolutionary camera coming from Blackmagic Design, the Blackmagic Cine 12K. Let's take a look. Alright guys, I want to start by saying even though I do not have this camera to show you today, I was at NAB this year, NAB 2024, shooting for Fujifilm, and in the process, even though I was working 8 to 10 hours a day, I did have some time to spend at the Blackmagic booth where I met Grant Petty, had a good conversation with him and some other Blackmagic reps, and I was able to play around with this camera in some different scenarios on some different setups. Now, that being said, the setups I was using it on probably cost upward to $100,000, so not really practical for this, but I do want to run through the camera itself and kind of the groundbreaking features that are going to be inside of this camera. Blackmagic is marketing this camera as the most advanced digital cinema camera to ever exist, and in some cases it might actually be that. The camera hosts a 36 by 24 millimeter sensor with larger photo sights, whatever that means, which is supposed to give the camera far greater dynamic range than its little brothers and its competitors. The camera also has the ability to swap different lens mounts such as EF, PL, LPL, and Hasselblad lens mounts. The camera also boasts a high-tech workflow using high-speed networking for media management and syncing, as well as being the first cinema camera with a high-capacity storage of 8 terabytes. There's also Wi-Fi built into the camera for remote viewing for team members and clients. Now, let's go back to the sensor for just a second because it's pretty bonkers. This camera can shoot a wide range of resolutions stretching from 4K to 12K. The sensor offers a dynamic range of 16 stops, and after using this camera a little bit at NAB and seeing how it handled the highlights and the shadows, I really do believe those numbers. Also, historically, Blackmagic has been really honest about their numbers. So that's cool. And probably one of the most exciting things about the sensor itself that people are going to overlook is the fact that no matter what resolution you're shooting in, it's going to use the full sensor and there's not going to be any crop in. I know as mirrorless shooters that gets really frustrating whenever you have a camera that is able to shoot a higher resolution but it crops in, and it kind of defeats the entire purpose in my opinion. So this is a really cool feature inside of this camera. On top of all that, the camera is able to shoot an open gate format at a 3:2 aspect ratio using the entirety of the sensor. And that's great if you want to reframe your shot for any sort of aspect ratio or even to do some vertical editing for social media. Alright guys, when it comes to the build quality of the camera, this thing is built like a tank, yet still has that super light feel that we're used to with the Blackmagic Design cameras. The camera has a ton of soft backlit buttons on it, which I love because as filmmakers, the more buttons you can have, the better. It helps us when we don't have to jump into a menu all of the time. We can click a button really fast and change some settings on the fly. So I really appreciate all the buttons that Blackmagic puts on this camera. The camera also has a flip out 5-inch display for viewing whenever you're shooting, which is kind of standard in their cinema cameras. But in addition to that, they have another 5-inch screen on the other side for an assistant to view or maybe even a client to view. So it's really cool that it has two really bright 5-inch screens on the camera. Of course, as you would expect with a camera at this price and this quality, you get tons of SD outs, Ethernet outs, XLRs, USB-Cs, and more. I will put all of the list of different components that are on the camera in terms of outputs and inputs on the screen. Now, this wouldn't be a Blackmagic camera without their legendary Blackmagic RAW, which in this camera you're going to be getting the most advanced, I think 5th generation of this RAW. So that's really cool, and I'm excited to edit some of these test clips that are available on the website to just see how that RAW handles inside of my workflow. The camera records to a onboard media deck, which is 8 terabytes, and as I was looking at this media storage option, I saw that it runs about $1,700 on the website, and for 8 terabytes, for something that big and this robust, that's really actually not a bad price. So I was very impressed that they were able to charge that much, because if anybody used the older Red cameras, you know that to have that much storage would have cost you upwards to $8,000 to $10,000. So I appreciate Blackmagic making this very large and very affordable. Some other notes, and I do encourage you guys to go to Blackmagic's website because they have a really nice interface when it comes to the information of this camera. But some other notes would be that it has a built-in optical low pass filter, which is really nice. That's something that a lot of other camera manufacturers will sell later on, or you'll have to get a third-party version to install into your camera. That's already built in. There's also built-in NDs that are color matched and corrected, and they're supposed to be some of the best built-in NDs that Blackmagic has ever offered, so you won't have to worry about external ND. And for all of you slow motion junkies, there are a wide range of different frame rates it can shoot, and I believe the highest frame rate possible at 4K is something like 244 frames per second. Correction, it's 8K 244 frames per second. Wow, that's very slow. Of course, it wouldn't be Blackmagic without getting a free copy of the full pro version of Vinci Resolve. And to me, being probably the best editing software out there right now, I just love that Blackmagic does this, and it just shows that they really do go above and beyond to pack in as much value as possible when you're purchasing their cameras. Sorry guys, that is my rooster. I do in fact live on a farm. Jokes welcome in the comments. Another option for this camera is this EVF that they are selling for it, which is their most advanced EVF ever. And guys, I can tell you, looking through this EVF, it was probably the best electronic viewfinder that I have ever looked through. And so I personally, if I was to buy this camera or rent it even, I would definitely want this on there, especially using it outdoors in the daylight. So now that we've got a lot of those hardy specs out of the way, which of course, you know, I didn't list everything. I would encourage everyone to go to their website to dive deeper into that interface. Who is this camera actually for? Well, if you're like me, a rural filmmaker who focuses on weddings, commercials, brand content, and pretty much anything else that pays the bills, this is probably not a camera that you're going to buy, at least right now. Now, that being said, I personally shoot a lot of things that are longer format. Maybe it's a graduation for a school or something like that. I could actually see myself renting this camera for something like that for the large amount of storage that is available. I could actually see myself using this camera whenever I need a really high quality image and I have to do a lot of recording and there's going to be just a ton of footage. The 8 terabytes would help with that. Not to mention all of the things that are built into this camera are things that I wouldn't have to outrig the camera with later, such as built-in ND, optical low-pass filters, and you know, there's all the built-in frame rates and things like that. So even though this is not something that I would personally buy, this is something that I could see myself renting for some of my higher end projects that I have. Now, in terms of Hollywood features, commercials, and even independent films, I think this camera is hitting it out of the park. Like, there's just a lot of packed in features that you're not gonna get with a lot of the other competitors. And another thing for Hollywood that they really focus on, and it does make a lot of sense, is workflow. And the workflow in this camera, I think, is basically the biggest selling point, other than just the advancements in their sensor and things like that. I could see, you know, on a large set, when you have a media manager, this is going to be great because they can transfer the file straight to Vinci Resolve bins, and that's something that they're really boasting on here, and it makes a lot of sense, especially looking at Blackmagic. You know, they kind of started in that broadcast space, and Grant Petty actually talks a lot about how he wanted to find solutions because he was working in TV, and this makes a lot of sense that you're going to be able to use this camera seamlessly with your editing team or with your media management team if you're working on a bigger budget film or commercial, and there's not going to be as much sneaker netting and errors occur whenever you are just passing along media, which we all know happens. This is gonna revolutionize, and I think other camera companies are gonna follow suit in this. I could see Nikon and Red incorporating some kind of camera to cloud integration, and then other camera companies such as Sony that are already sort of doing some of this are going to follow suit. Blackmagic tends to pave the way when it comes to workflow because of their post-production and live production experience. Okay guys, so that is just kind of a brief overview of the camera. Like I said, I did have a chance to feel it and hold it, and it's a really cool camera. Probably not one that most of us that are following this channel or myself are going to buy, but if you do have a higher end production come up, I would be very interested to see what the rental price of this camera is going to be. Rental prices over the years have gone down drastically, so I don't think it will be outrageous if your client can afford it. It would be really exciting to use this camera, but that's going to do it for the video. Make sure you guys like and subscribe if you like the content, and we will see you in the next one. Bye bye.